and I would like to invite Dr. Komal Chandra Radha Kishun just to introduce our second speaker. Let this recording start first. Yes, Radha Kishunji. Now I request you to invite our
Yes,
second speaker.
yes. Thank you, Professor Ravi Prakash Areji. आप सभी को सादर नमस्ते. Respected Chair of Maharshi Dayanand University Chair, Maharshi Dayanand University Rohtak. And it is my immense pleasure today to introduce Dr. Vedveer Arya, who is a chronologist, historian, and Sanskrit scholar. He is a civil servant and Joint Secretary level officer from the Ministry of Defense. He was the student of Acharya Vijaypal Vidya Varidhi, Panini Mahavidyalaya, Sonipat, and specialized in Paninian grammar. His deep interest in epigraphic studies propelled him to become a methodical researcher and profound insight into the chronological history of ancient India. He has also extensively worked on the scientific contribution of ancient India. He authored 5 books, namely Indian Contribution to Mathematics and Astronomy, published in 2014, The Chronology of Ancient India, Victim of Concoction and Distortion, published in 2015, and The Chronology of India from Manu to Mahabharat, The Chronology of India from Mahabharat to Medieval Era in 2 volumes, and The Origin of Christian Era, Fact and Fiction, published in 2020. Now, I'm honored to give the floor to Dr. Vedveer Arya. Floor is yours, sir. Dr. Vedveer Arya.
Namaste to all. Dr. Ravi Prakash Arya ji, Dr. Dharmendra Kumar ji, and all distinguished guests tonight. I think the learned scholar Dr. Dharmendra Kumar ji, I think I know him since when I was a student. So we heard him. He has extensively covered entire the 12th chapter of Satyartha Prakash. I'm since both way I work in the philosophy as well as the. I first give you the historical background of the philosophy because that is more important to understand how so many philosophies and so many schools have been evolved after Buddha. If you go back to Buddha, so Buddha's time is around somewhere 19th century BC as per our traditional chronology. Though modern historians date around 500 BC, but there is a chronological error of 1380 years in dating of Buddha. So traditionally the Mahabharata war took place somewhere in the between 32nd century BC. From there onwards, the Buddha has to be dated after 1200 years. So that is the 19th century BC. So exactly the Buddha attained Nirvana around 1864 BC. If we go back to 1864 BC, why? Because the 12th chapter of Satyartha Prakasha discusses mostly about the Nastika Darshanas. So let us explore whether Nastika Darshana ever existed prior to, or even Charvakas and Bauddha, Jaina, other philosophies prior to Buddha. So it is our Sanatana tradition, or starting from the very early period to till Buddha. Shad Darshanas, the Shad Vedangas, our Upangas, the Shad Darshanas existed, the Kapilacharya's Sankhya Darshana, then Patanjali's Yoga Darshana, then Gautama's Nyaya, Kanada's Vaisheshika, then Mimamsa, later the Mimamsa Sutras, Vedanta Sutras came into. So these philosophies are well established school into one philosophical school called Traitavada. And there is a Traitavada and Dvaitavada. Dvaitavada is, if you take it animate, non-animate, actually this word, Chetana word, can't be translated into English. So it can't be animated. You can animate a non-living being, but you can't say animate. Our consciousness, it's not the only consciousness is Chet. So it's extremely difficult to certain Sanskrit words can't be translated. That's why when Dr. Ravi Prakash Ariji insisted me to speak only in English, so I was very wondering how can it use the English words to these kinds of Sanskrit words, because
No, you
so
can use Sanskrit word for them. No problem.
so it's extremely difficult to teach Indian philosophy in English. So that's a different challenge. But altogether, when we look into this one, we find certain other references like Vako Vakya. This philosophy has been referred in Chandogya Upanishad, even Gopatha Brahmana. But it's actually Vako Vakya is related to logic. So logic is part of Nyaya. So it's not anything a different philosophy or anything we can say that it has nothing to do with the Astika Darshanas or anything, because it is only dealing with the logic. So it's not a subject of whether the Astika or Nastika Darshan. There is one more what we generally hear about Lokayata. Probably Lokayata is not that way, the way Charvakas, because Swami Dayanand Saraswati ji just starts the 12th Samullasa to discuss the Charvaka Darshan. But Charvaka Darshana, what are the shlokas Swami Dayanand ji has referred? Actually, those are, I can say, he has taken from the Sarva Darshana Sangraha written by Vidyaranya or that Sarva Darshana Sangraha. But these shloka, that kind of a very, because that appears to be very a kind of American youth philosophy. You just eat, drink, and make merry kind of a philosophy is there. But actually, if you go back to the Lokayata philosophy, it's a materialist and atheist philosophy. But they followed a lot of other things because they believed in a good conduct, as well as you have to work for the salvation, many other things. The Lokayata actually corrupted to Charvaka later. So the Lokayata, the philosophy existed. If we go back to the lifetime of Buddha, the Buddhist texts refer to 6 different philosophers, like Purana Kashyapa. I don't know whether I can share the screen or not. I'll just see. Okay, we will see. That's Purana Kashyapa. Then we have the Maskari Goshaliputra, then Ajita Keshakambalin, Pakuda Kachayana, Sanjaya Belattiputra, Nirgranthanathaputra. So in this one, we can identify only 2 great philosophers, like Nirgranthanathaputra is actually early Jain philosophy. Though Mahavira was the 24th Tirthankara of Jainism, but prior to that, Nirgranthanathaputra. So they actually, the early Jains before Mahavira, they were known as Nirgranthas. It means they never formally compiled their philosophy. They just passed on their philosophy to their disciples. So that way the tradition of Nirgrantha tradition existed, but originally a kind of a Jain philosophy. Then Maskari Goshalaputra, he was the real teacher of Lokayata school. And the same Lokayata school is also somewhere related to the Ajivaka tradition, because Goshala was the founder of Ajivaka sect. This Ajivakas only later evolved into Digambaras of Jainism, and slowly the Shvetambara sect was born out of Jainism. So all those 6 philosophers existed during the time of Buddha. Actually, they one or other way they were following the Lokayata philosophy. And if we look into the Buddhism, so-called Buddhism was what has been introduced by Buddha. It's not that he has some way invented a new philosophy, a tradition of Lokayata, or some tradition, because the Buddhist texts talk about many Buddhist philosophers prior to Buddha. It's at least as per the Sutta or Vinaya Pitaka, he was the seventh. Shikhi, the names are there, the philosophers. So probably he inherited one particular philosophy. Then after 100 years of Buddha's nirvana, the Buddhism split into three different sects. That is Mahasanghhikas, Vibhajyavada, and then Theravada. So mostly the Mahasanghika, Theravada were the very great opponents to each other, because Theravada insisted on very austere, they wanted very strict discipline in the bhikshus' lives, where the Mahasanghikas wanted some kind of a concessions. So these two philosophies, the Mahasanghikas mostly were in the North India, and Theravadins from Magadha to then they actually preached the philosophies to Burma and Sri Lanka, and even South Indian tradition also follows Theravada. Then from Theravada, Sarvastivada and almost 18 sects evolved after Buddhism up to Kushana era, the Kanishka's time. As per the timeline, if you follow the Kanishka's time, maybe somewhere 12th century BC, 1150, though modern history books teach us that somewhere we have today 2nd century or 1st century AD is the Kanishka. The problem is same 1300 years, the chronological error. Now what happens that Sarvastivada, why I am giving this historical background is because Swami Dayanand Saraswati ji, he is discussing only 4 main Buddhist philosophies. Those are Vaibhashika, Sautrantikas, then we have the Madhyamikas, then Yogachara. Actually, these are main philosophical schools evolved from Kanishka, I mean Kushana's time, to Nagarjuna, and then Vasubandhu, Asanga Vasubandhu's time. So if you look at this, who are the Vaibhashikas and the Sautrantikas? The Vaibhashikas, actually they evolved from that Sarvastivada. Then this Vaibhashika, there is a very great history behind it. Actually, it is actually Kashmir school of philosophy. And Kashmir became center of Buddhism, and Kanchi also in the South India. These two were the major centers of Buddhism that time. So actually, these philosophies, what Buddhist philosophies are, evolved to counter our 6 Shad Darshanas. Actually, all are Indian traditions only. Actually, it's a kind of a reactive philosophy. So in a way, we can see it's more our Vaitandikas. Why Swami Dayanand Saraswati ji always call them as a Vaitandikas? Because if you look at their questions, it appears to be very logical questions. You have to answer those questions. You can't reject them as an invalid questions. But actually, those are related to Vitanda. How those things, like these Vaibhashikas, actually they said they actually, the Kashmir Buddhist, they safely guarded the Vaibhashika philosophy, and they his name probably an Ashwagosha, an early Ashwagosha. Actually, he wanted to learn it, but the Kashmir Buddhists, they just refused them that we don't teach you. Then he went there, and he pretended as a thief, and just he stayed in Kashmir, and some way he memorized all Vaibhashika. Then later he compiled when he could come out of Kashmir. So this is how Vaibhashika philosophy became popular. And then Sautrantikas, this is actually Kumaralata. He was the originator of this Sarvastivada. Then we come with this. Finally, this evolved into the Nagarjuna comes out with the cream of the Buddhist philosophy. Then he says, everything is actually nothing. So, this is nothing, Shunyavada. Why it is? Because it's actually kind of a Kshanikavada also. It's a momentary. The existence of because in this material world, everything is perishable. nothing is, you can't say that the rupa means the kind of a form, what appears to our eyes, that is perishable. It's not that the prakriti is perishable, what I am saying. What we see, like we see the trees, today are there, tomorrow may not be. And we see the human beings and the animals and or whatever, that will change it. Even every first minute is not second minute, second is not third. So that's why what he says, it's only first is the Kshanikavada, then the Shunyavada. It means there was nothingness existed and nothingness will exist. Now, whatever is in between, it just appears to be existing, but it's also a nothingness. This is how a Madhyamika philosophy evolved into kind of an Advaitavada. So this Advaitavada actually that challenged every philosophy, and even especially Sankhya and our Shad Darshana, their main logic is, if you say a Chetana Tattva is either omnipresent or ever it's omnipotent, Sarva Shaktiman hai, then whether Chetana Tattva can become a Jada Tattva? No, it can't. It means the Shakti of the Sarva Shaktiman is limited. Okay, it appears to be a logical question, but actually it's a Vitandavada. You can't say that if चेतन जड़ नहीं हो सकता, जड़ चेतन नहीं हो सकता, का दोनों सीमित तत्व नहीं है. ये एक साइंटिफिकली आपको लगेगा कि एक बहुत सटीक प्रश्न है और इसका समाधान करना बहुत जरूरी है. Actually, and this actually challenged all Indian philosophers to prove that if Chetana Tattva is omnipresent and omnipotent, then how it is limited. Even suppose there are two individuals, means somebody is existing in front of you, it means that limits your Shakti. This was the main argument. So whoever existed during that time, we could not counter these arguments in a right perspective. Then finally, Adi Shankaracharya, he wanted to re-establish it, but he actually adopted this Shunyavada into Advaitavada. This was the reason why he was called Prachanna Bodha by the Sankhya philosophers. And this is the reason why Advaitavadins always say that Sankhyas were the Pradhanamallas, not the Buddhists. The problem is that because we are only believing that what is being appearing in a particular moment. Rest, the existence is only nothingness. This was the Buddhism, where the Advaitavada says there is only one tattva exists, but due to upadhigrast, due to upadhi, you will that appears to exist in between, but actually that does not exist. It's actually a Maya. So there is a very close connection between the Madhyamika philosophy as well as the Advaita philosophy. Now there is another problem. When Advaitavada started defeating, because the Adi Shankaracharya, when Kanchi and Kashmir, these are the two major centers, he went to Kashmir, he defeated all the Buddhist philosophers, then he has been offered to Sarvagya Pitha, and he again came to Kanchi and he became the head of that Sarvagya Pitha. Now the problem started. If there is only one tattva, then how you can equate the difference between bhakta and aradhi? आप भक्ति किसके लिए कर रहे हैं? If you are yourself a god, then whom you are worshipping, or at least जो प्रार्थना कर रहे हैं या किसी क्योंकि एक सीमित व्यक्तित्व एक असीमित व्यक्तित्व दोनों एक कैसे हो सकते हैं? So this problem, that again the churning went on, then became the Vishishtadvaita, then Dvaitadvaita, whatnot. So this all the though they are accepting Advaita, still they say there is you need a Dvaita, because in a bhakti it has to be Dvaita. It is impossible to Advaita bhakti is impossible. So the problem is that the philosophies, the way they actually kind of a reactive philosophy, they are not the, what happens, something as when you have observed yourself, or you are observing to counter, or to just to counter some one established philosophy. So it kind of a reactive philosophies evolved after Buddha onwards. But originally they all belong to the same school of philosophy, that what they want to negate whatever the philosophies already existed. So they kept on questioning, same the Vitanda Vada. So the actually we should not have entertained. This is the what exactly Swami Dayananda Saraswati tells us in the 12th Samullasa. All because the way, if you, I think already Dr. Dharmendra Kumar Shastri has discussed so many questions, the dialogue between the atheist and theist, the dialogue, it actually exposes the shallowness of all those arguments. Because the Jainism, in what they never believe into any supreme being and others. There are, but actually they believe in asankhyata jivas. That's the existence of innumerable or ananta jivas. But you have to. They believe in very strict discipline in their life, and then you have to attain the Kaivalya. And but the problem is here, for what purpose? Because this Jain philosophy is actually never ever. We have seen a lot of shastras that took place from Buddhist era to Adi Shankaracharya and later stage, but we never heard about anything very great shastra that ever went into to discuss the real Jainism. Actually, Jainism initially existed Nirgrantha. They tried to compile it into, but they could not properly formulate their philosophy. Still, Swami Dayananda Saraswati, somehow he extracted their core philosophies, and then he has pointed out very correctly that it is fundamentally wrong if you are not accepting a supreme being or a kind of a Paramatma Tattva, because that without that you can't expect the existence of other jivas and others, because finally the Chetana Tattva, the way in the, I think all Samullas discuss about the Traitavada. And one more main issue in this 12th Samullasa, he discusses the cosmology of the Jainism. Because one great thing about the Jainist philosophies, they follow the very good mathematics. Why? Because they were the, I think we have seen, anyhow, in our Rigveda, Purnamadaha, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachyate. But the way they perfectly defined what is infinity is in the Jainism, because that we have to admire the kind of the way they have. That is actually is almost equal to the modern science also, the way they believe in that infinity, the everything. But they applied this to that the asankhyata, how the innumerability or the kind of an infinity exists in this world. But finally, that infinity, what there, it's only a mathematical, I can say, a kind of a manipulations or a simulation what they have shown. But they have to show that the actual existence of the entire universe You can say that even today, every day we discover certain new galaxies and others. Similarly, we keep on, as long as today the telescopes exist, we have seen up to that level. But tomorrow we may develop more powerful telescopes and we may discover more galaxies. But similarly, the Jainism, he says that there are the kind of the asankhyata jivas, the concept. But finally, the supreme being has to be accepted to prove the other existence of the others. So that actually missing from the Buddhist and the Jainist philosophies. Even in 12th Samullasa, Swami Dayananda Saraswati has discussed actually there is a very similarities also in the context of the substances accepted by them. There are 4 substances, that means dravya accepted by the Buddhism, and only dharma, adharma, these 2 has been added to the Jainist school of philosophy. But this is again this dharma, adharma, why they accept it 2 differently? Because in the Jain philosophy, the attribute and non-attributes both have to be accepted, because again it's actually kind of a logical simulations they kept on doing. But instead of that, they would have been adopted the philosophical approach to that one, that actually missing from the Chinese philosophy. This is Swami Dayananda Saraswati says, what he exposed about it, that you can, there is a way, logic is there, but logic is not, it's a means, but it has to be finally, the philosophy is actually all pervasive, where they just following one particular methodology, you can't reveal the truth. You have to, when you are actually investigating the truth, you have to adopt all methodologies. Then all methodologies will lead to the Traitavada, and finally the philosophy from the Vedas, Upanishads, and then the Shaddarshana, what actually reveal the real philosophy to us. So this is the actually in the entire all samullasas, this 12th samullasa is very, very important to actually we need to actually dive deep into to understand the origin of these philosophies. That is very, very important, because that's why I gave you the historical background in the beginning of my talk. The way they start, because initially, like even Buddhist, if you take it, that Sarvastivada or Mula Sarvasva, they are very, very elementary stage whenever they started. So those before the Buddhism, already Indian traditions existed, but due to the challenge of Buddhism, new darshanas like Navya Nyaya and other schools evolved to satisfy your opponent philosophers. But that actually we deviated from the original philosophies due to that also. That was another mistake what Swami Dayananda Saraswati has always warned us, that you cannot just to change your arguments or change your thoughts to satisfy your opponent, then finally you will be falling into his trap. So this actually happened when you see that this Navya Nyaya and other Advaitavada, these are actually the Buddhist traps, where we have actually lost our original philosophical schools. So this is actually Swami Dayananda Saraswati has re-established our ancient tradition of philosophies. So why it is so important to follow the Upanishad and the Shaddarshana philosophies. And finally, Swami Dayananda Saraswati, he was a great rishi, so he visualized that thing. But it was not so. It's extremely difficult, because the kind of arguments went on during the Buddhist and Jainist era it's phenomenal. And the challenge, actually, the prior to the Buddhist and Jainist philosophers, Indian philosophies have never got that kind of a challenge from Lokayata, because they were only the materialist, and or some like a Nirgranthas existed. So there was actually no challenge to all our Shat Darshanas. During the Buddhist and Jain period, they actually posed a very great challenge to us with the very pertinent questions. But if you analyze those questions in the right perspective, you will find the shallowness of those arguments, and as well as the approach they have taken. It's very easy to say, especially because the main cream is the Madhyamika philosophy. Though Yogacara, it accepts that because finally Yogacara, because this Madhyamika become more impractical philosophy. So Yogacara wanted to make the Madhyamika philosophy is more acceptable to the people. So what he says, it's actually Bahya Shunya. It's nothingness outside, but it appears universal. Why you see a ghata or a particular object in front of you? Because that actually is appearing in your mind or inside of you. That's why you could see it. So this is actually mixing up with the Vyakarana philosophy and the Shunyavada. And if you say the Vakyapadiya and the Spotavada also, that also actually influenced from the Madhyamika Shunyavada, as well as the later, that also finally the Advaitavada. So whether the meaning, word and meaning, how whether meaning derives from word or the word derives from meaning. So this is also a great discussion went on during those times. Even Dingnaga criticizes the Bhartrihari's Vakyapadiya in his philosophical text. So if you see the kind of the philosophical traditions evolved after Buddha, one thing we must admire, that the kind of a great churning went on, but still the validity of our Shat Darshana was always existed, actually re-established by Swami Dayananda Saraswati Ji. So this is the greatness of Satyartha Prakasha whenever we read it. So though so many, I can say, not only these Buddhist or Jain darshanas, even our like Navya Nyaya, and even Vedanta also, that went down into the Advaita Veda, actually Advaita Darshana. But the Badarayana Sutras never ever discuss about that philosophy. But actually it's only in the kind of that Shariraka Bhashya only it translates in, or it interprets in a different way. But in the starting from the Badarayana and Yagyavalkya and the Gargi, the discussion between them, and Upanishad philosophy, the same philosophy is only translated into the Vedanta Sutras. So the Advaita as never, it's only some kind of a Tattvamasi kind of a statements have been actually misinterpreted by the later Indian philosophers. So this we have to, actually Swami Dayananda Saraswati made us to realize that the Buddhist and Jain philosophies were actually traps to attract you to, actually they tried us to deviate from our traditions. But finally it's I think we are fortunate that we had Swami Dayananda Saraswati, who actually showed us a path how you can philosophically analyze these philosophies, and then you can establish Satya and the Prakasha of Satya. So that is the main objective of Swami Dayanand Saraswati behind writing of Satyartha Prakasha. So I'll just stop here. And actually, this 12 Samullasa, because I heard Dr. Dharmendra Shastriji, he has spoken extensively about that. So I try to avoid to discuss the same things because it's actually those things. But I wanted to give you the historical background, how the philosophy, this Nastika Darshana evolved. Actually, they're actually a kind of a just to challenge the existing philosophies. That was the only objective, not to establish an original philosophy. So if we can analyze and as well as examine these philosophies, the truth emerges what Swami Dayanand Saraswati has shown us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vedveer ji. In fact, philosophy is a very intricate and deep subject, and it requires only good scholars to deal with it. And I chose only the two scholars. They were able to do justice with the philosophy. And Dr. Vedveer, he just pointed out in a clear terms that these old Gnostic philosophies, they originated as a reaction or as a challenge to the prevalent Vedic philosophies or the Shada Darshanas. And all these, whether these Charavakas or Buddhists or Jainis, they were challenging the existing system of philosophy. And Loka, he also gave a detailed description of the historical origin of these philosophies. And even he pointed out that the Buddha's birth is the 19th century BC, and it's not just like generally the historians say 5th century or 8th century BC or 3rd century BC. And similarly, the Shankara is around some 6th century BC. So he also told us that the Indian chronology, the chronology of Indian history has been demoted by 1300 years, and this gap he tried to fill up. And he just highlighted the different Buddhist philosophies related to the different regions, just like the Kashmir, and in South also the same philosophy was evolving. And he also pointed out that even the Shankara, the scholar like Shankara, he fell into the traps of the Buddhists. And according to while he was refuting the nothingness of the Madhyamikas, and he gave a theory of Advaitavada, so he was also influenced by, he was also, in a way we can say that he was trapped by Buddhists. So strong lobby was there, and he had to declare that Advaitavada is there. But when Advaita is there, then what is the meaning of bhakti? He rightly told, what is the meaning of worship? Whom a worshipper will do the worship? Whom he will do worship? Where is the Bhagwan? If Bhagwan and Bhakt are the same, then there is no meaning of bhakti. So this type of things, it was a great attack or invasion on Indian ideology during that period. And only Maharshi Dayananda, he could realize all these things, and as a great seer, he could refute all these prevalent existing philosophies in a very, very authoritative way. He had a deep study of their philosophies and refuted them with giving full logic or reasoning evidences, and so whatever he could use, he used all his tools to refute or criticize their these were actually, we cannot call these as philosophies as rightly termed by Dr. Vedveer. These are not the philosophies, but these are the joke of philosophies, and they are still prevalent. Because whatever you see, even a simple student, he will know that the soul, if The bigger things are there, then the magnitude of the soul goes along with the body. If the smaller body is there, then the soul is also smaller. If the bigger body is there, the soul is bigger. So these are not the arguments, and I don't think these are the philosophies. And similarly, when you say that, as pointed out by Dharmendra, that if you are able to know the parts, you are able to know the whole body. This is not possible. If somebody gives you, if you have not seen the whole body, then how can you recognize the or form the whole body based upon the part? So these philosophies are the childish philosophies, and the people, they used to follow them because they don't apply mind, they don't apply their metal just to understand the things. No doubt in Buddhist philosophy there originated great scholars just like Nagarjuna and Ashwaghosh, like that, but their contribution in in chemistry or in mathematics, that cannot be ruled out. They did a lot of contribution to these material sciences, and the Charvak, they dwelt as a materialistic philosophers. They never believed that the soul is there. They were thinking that body is the soul itself, and they were thinking that the origin of spirit or the spiritual element takes from the material element. So this is not possible. This is quite absurd type of thinking that remained prevalent during such a long period in the history of India. And only in 19th century AD, after Buddha was in 19th century BC, and after Buddha 19th century AD, there is a period of 3600 years. And during this period of 3600 years, all these philosophies dominated not only India, but Buddhist philosophy, Jain philosophers, they dominated whole of the Asia. And this was a tragedy because nobody came to challenge them the way Swami Dayananda challenged and just pointed out or demonstrated that these are not the philosophy, but for the namesake, these are the philosophy. So many things when we in fact, when we criticize or when we do a review of certain things, then we will have to go deep into their concepts. But I think when Satyarth Prakash is there, you just go through the 12th chapter of the Satyarth Prakash, and it will give you the complete estimate of the philosophical schools that were prevalent in this country, or these Gnostic philosophies who were not accepting the authority of the Veda, and other way around we have the Astic philosophies based upon the Veda, the Saddarshanas, and till today this Saddarshan system is evergreen. This philosophy can never be refuted or can never be disapproved. Now the things are coming forward, and when the physics of Vaisheshik is going to be accepted and approved even by the modern scientists. But certain things are very you just see the Shunyavad is there, the word Shunya is there, and it is formed of a word Shun, and the word Shun itself tells the Shun means puffed one, the swollen one. But how come the Shunya was translated as nothingness? So in Vedic philosophy, the Shunya is also the completeness. It gives the sense of a Puranata, just like from number 1 to 9, Shunya is there, but it is in the form of a lopo adarshanam, just like the Panini says. It is not visible, but when you come to the number 10, it becomes visible. And the Shunya is known as in Vedic philosophy as a kham, Brahma, like that. All these attributes that are applied to Brahman, they are also applied to Shunya also. When the whole material world is eliminated or becomes extinct, then what remains? Only the Brahman remains. Similarly, when all these numbers, they are eliminated or they become extinct, then only the Shunya will be surviving. So this concept, the Shunyavad also, I think it's not so much acceptable and mostly rational. There is no rational behind it. तो हमारे यहाँ विद्वानों ने जिस प्रकार से दर्शन की जो व्याख्या हमारे साहित्य में हुई है, वो दर्शन की व्याख्या न तो कोई कर सकता, क्योंकि ये ऋषियों का दर्शन है। और ऋषियों का दर्शन जो है एक सामान्य जो व्यक्ति हैं, और या किसी व्यक्ति को 15-20 दिन के लिए कोई ज्ञान प्राप्त हो जाता है तो उससे उसकी व्याख्या नहीं होती। इसके लिए तो हजारों वर्षों का जो मेहनत है और जो तप है उसकी आवश्यकता रहती है। और उसके लिए एक उसी प्रकार का जो ऋषित्व है व्यक्ति में, ऋषि का भाव भी होना चाहिए। उसी प्रकार से व्यक्ति योग की स्थितियों में जा सके, उसका दर्शन कर सके। यदि ऐसी स्थिति बनती है तभी हम इन दर्शनों को, भारतीय दर्शन को, वैदिक दर्शन को समझ सकते हैं। वैदिक दर्शन को समझना भी इतना आसान नहीं है, जैसा कि तीर्थंकरों ने और बुद्धिस्ट स्कॉलरों ने कहा, और इवन की बुद्ध ने भी कहा कि सर्वस्य संसारस्य दुखात्मकत्वम, कि सारा संसार दुखों का घर है। और वहां पर एक तरफ महर्षि दयानंद बड़े सिंपल तरीके से कहते हैं कि यदि सारा संसार दुखों का घर है तो सुख और दुख की कल्पना कैसे हो सकती है? अगर दुख ही दुख है तो आप कह ही नहीं सकते कि ये दुख है। जब द्वंद्व है, जब दूसरा पैरेलल कंसेप्ट आपके पास है, जब सुख आपके पास है, तभी आप किसी को कह सकते हैं कि ये दुख है। यदि यूनिवर्सली एक चीज है, यूनिफॉर्मली एक चीज है, तो आप उसका कोई नामकरण दे ही नहीं सकते। जो भी नामकरण देंगे वो द्वंद्व भाव में नहीं होगा कि सुख है तो दुख है, इस प्रकार का भाव नहीं हो सकता है। तो जब हम गहराई से देखते हैं इस पूरे विज्ञान को, इन पूरे दर्शनों को, तो लगने लगता है कि बहुत बचकाना लेवल की बातें की गई हैं। इवन की बुद्धिस्ट दर्शन में भी हमने देखा कि कहीं माध्यमिक है, कहीं योगाचार है, कहीं श्रोत्रांतिक है, कहीं सर्वास्तिवाद है। वैसे ही तीर्थंकरों में वो पहले ग्रंथ निर्ग्रंथ उनका था, उनके वहां कोई ग्रंथ ही वो लिख नहीं पाए थे, बाद में विद्वानों ने लिखा। तो धीरे धीरे ये फिलोसफीज डेवलप हुई उनकी कल्पना के आधार पर। वहां कोई एक जस्टिफाइड सिस्टम नहीं था जिसके आधार पर ये दर्शन उत्पन्न हुआ हो। एक व्यक्ति ने कहा कि भाई बहुत ज्यादा दुख है, हमें दुखों से छुटकारा प्राप्त करना है, और वो प्राप्त करने का एक मध्यम मार्ग है। ये कोई बहुत बड़ा दर्शन नहीं है, परंतु बाद के विद्वानों ने उसको एक दर्शन का रूप दिया गया, उस पर चिंतन किया गया, उसमें और गहराई से भी बातें की गई। परंतु यदि आप यथार्थ की गहराई में जाते हैं तो उससे यथार्थ जो है वही बढ़ता है। उससे यथार्थ जो स्थिति है उससे सत्य का अन्वेषण नहीं होता है। अगर असत्य पर आप जितना भी शोध करेंगे वो तो ठीक है कि आप असत्य की गहराई में चले जाएंगे, परंतु उससे सत्य का दर्शन नहीं हो सकता है। इसलिए यदि सत्य का दर्शन करना है तो सत्यार्थ प्रकाश का ही स्वाध्याय करना होगा। इन्हीं शब्दों के साथ मैं अपने दोनों विद्वान वक्ताओं का, क्योंकि देखिए 12वें समोल्लास पर कोई बोलने का साहस नहीं कर सकता है, क्योंकि 12वें समोल्लास पर बोलने के लिए आपको अनेक दर्शनों का स्वाध्याय करना पड़ेगा, और जो कि अपने आप में एक बहुत वास्ट विषय है। और उन दर्शनों के अनुसार और आपको निजी दर्शनों का भी पूरा ज्ञान होना आवश्यक है। तो मैं इन दोनों अपने जो विशिष्ट वक्ता थे, दोनों ही विशिष्ट वक्ता थे, उनका अत्यंत धन्यवाद करता हूं कि उन्होंने महर्षि दयानंद कृत सत्यार्थ प्रकाश के 12वें समोल्लास को लेकर के उसका जो ऐतिहासिक परिप्रेक्ष्य है, उसका जो दार्शनिक परिप्रेक्ष्य है, उनमें जो वैज्ञानिकता थी और वहां पर जो तार्किक भाव है, उन सबका एक समीचीन और एक बहुत अच्छा विश्लेषण किया। और यह विश्लेषण मैं पुनः कहता हूं कि ये बड़ा ड्राई शुष्क विषय है, न तो सामान्य श्रोता इसको सुन सकता है, न समझ सकता है, और सामान्य बुद्धि का विद्वान भी, उसकी बुद्धि भी यहाँ पर काम नहीं करती है। तो आप समझिए, जो 30 लोग बैठे हुए थे, जो 60 से 30 हुए हैं, यही इसको समझ सकते थे, और सब इसको समझ भी नहीं सकते थे। तो मैं इन सभी विद्वानों का, जो अटेंड कर रहे हैं, उसको निरंतर समाधिस्थ होकर के, और जिन वक्ताओं ने उसका सारा दिग्दर्शन कराया है, मैं उन सब का अत्यंत आभार व्यक्त करता हूँ। और अपने दोनों वक्ता डॉक्टर वेदवीर जी का और प्रोफेसर धर्मेंद्र जी का, दोनों का अत्यंत आभार व्यक्त करता हूँ। मैंने वेदवीर जी को बहुत बार सुना है, किस प्रकार से उन्होंने विक्रम संवत की खोज की है, उन्होंने शक संवत की खोज की है, कि ये जो 1878 एडी वाला शक संवत है, ये शक संवत दूसरा है। पहला शक संवत कहीं 500 के बीसी के करीब जाता है, वैसे ही जो विक्रम संवत है, ये 57 बीसी वाला दूसरा है, और पहला विक्रम संवत भी 700 बीसी के करीब जाता है। तो वो बहुत अच्छे अनुसंधाता भी हैं और क्रोनोलॉजिस्ट भी हैं, उन्होंने भारत के इतिहास पर बहुत कार्य किया है। उसी प्रकार से डॉक्टर जो धर्मेंद्र हैं, वो भी विशिष्ट विद्वान हैं व्याकरण के, और उन्होंने भी काफी स्वाध्याय किया है। तो मैं दोनों विद्वानों का धन्यवाद करता हूं, और अपने सभी जो यहाँ पर विद्वान जुटे हुए हैं, आचार्य ब्रह्मदेव मॉरिशस से मैं उनका धन्यवाद करता हूँ, अश्विनी राजपाल कनाडा से मैं उनका भी धन्यवाद करता हूँ, डॉक्टर कोमल चंद्र राधा किशुन मॉरिशस से मैं उनका भी धन्यवाद करता हूँ, प्रोफेसर भूपेंद्र गुप्ता यूएसए से मैं उनका भी धन्यवाद करता हूँ, डॉक्टर शांति महावीर जो मॉरिशस से हैं उनका धन्यवाद करता हूँ, इरोल राम स्वरूप फ्रॉम ट्रिनिडाड, आई थैंक हिम, अलोइस हाइनरिक फ्रॉम Germany, I also thank him. Mr. Kinu from Mauritius, Professor Jaswant Patel from USA. I also thank Professor Ranveer Singh from Mahendragarh University, Mr. Satish Bihari from Mauritius, Usha Devi Prasad from South Africa, Vivekananda Mahavir Vidyasagar Garg from USA. So I thank you all, and I greet you all to make this workshop, this session a success. Thanks.